Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. He's the world's most famous, and perhaps its most beloved billionaire. We all know the image, right? A humble, folksy grandpa from Nebraska who still lives in the same modest house he bought back in 1958. A man who famously grabs his daily breakfast from a McDonald's drive-thru and delights his fans by strumming a ukulele. His annual letters to shareholders are treated like financial gospel, packed with witty, down-to-earth wisdom and ethical gems that have made him a global icon. We've all heard the quotes. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And of course, his most famous rule of investing. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. It's charming, it's simple, and it has made him a hero to millions of aspiring capitalists. He's presented as a friendly face of American wealth, the proof that you can get to the very top without losing your soul. But that's the myth, a carefully constructed, brilliantly marketed myth. The reality? The man you see as a financial saint has been deeply entangled in massive bank scandals, allegations of insider trading, and a fossil fuel empire that is actively accelerating the climate crisis. The company he runs, Berkshire Hathaway, has profited from human misery in ways that would make a robber baron blush. This isn't the story of the Oracle of Omaha. This is the story of how a ruthless and calculating billionaire built a perfect public image to hide a dark and disturbing legacy of greed. So, if you want to finally see the real Warren Buffett, the man behind the curtain, stick around. This is the story they don't want you to hear. Let's start with something familiar, an image Buffett himself has carefully cultivated. A can of Coke. He famously claims to drink 5 of these every single day. It's a cornerstone of his quirky, relatable brand. I'm 1/4 Coca-Cola, he once joked. What a character. But what's not so quirky is that his company, Berkshire Hathaway, just happens to be one of the Coca-Cola company's largest and longest-standing shareholders. For decades upon decades, Buffett has raked in billions of dollars in dividends from a product that is a primary driver of the global obesity and type 2 diabetes epidemics. While he pens letters about investing in businesses with long-term, sustainable value, his company has been cashing in on a public health crisis fueled by sugar. Health organizations around the globe have declared war on sugary drinks, linking them directly to chronic illnesses that kill millions and cost healthcare systems trillions. It's a classic Buffett play. Invest in a simple product with an unbreakable brand, a moat as he calls it, and just ignore the immense human cost. He isn't just a passive investor. He's one of the biggest financial beneficiaries of a product that has caused incalculable harm. But profiting from sugar water is just the appetizer. The truly predatory side of Buffett's empire snaps into focus when you look at Clayton Homes, America's biggest builder of mobile homes, which is owned and controlled by Berkshire Hathaway. An explosive multi-part investigation by the Seattle Times and the Center for Public Integrity uncovered a systemic pattern of predatory lending that would make a loan shark blush. The investigation found that Clayton Homes wasn't just building houses. It was systematically trapping its customers, a disproportionate number of whom were minority families, in a financial nightmare. Here's how the trap worked. Clayton Homes would aggressively market the dream of homeownership, often to low-income families. Then, it would steer these hopeful buyers toward its own lending subsidiary, Vanderbilt Mortgage. This is where the predation began. The investigation uncovered that Clayton was pushing minority borrowers into subprime loans with outrageously high interest rates, often exceeding 15%, far higher than what white borrowers with similar financial profiles received. These families, just chasing a piece of the American dream, were locked into ruinous loans they could never hope to afford. And the homes themselves? They were often overpriced and would lose value so quickly that families were trapped, unable to sell or refinance. The report was filled with heartbreaking stories. Customers described deceptive sales tactics, like loan terms suddenly changing at the last minute right at closing. They spoke of being pressured into monthly payments they knew they couldn't handle, but were told was their only option. When people inevitably fell behind, Clayton's other subsidiary would then repossess the home, often flipping it to the next unsuspecting family, starting the whole cycle over again. When these horrific allegations came out, Buffett defended the company and its practices. He brushed off the evidence of systemic predation, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. The Scripps fictional projection of a lawsuit in early 2025 is a narrative stand-in for the legal reckoning that has been brewing for years. Imagine a future headline: U.S. government sues Clayton's lending arm. The charges would allege that Vanderbilt Mortgage knowingly and systematically pushed vulnerable people into unaffordable loans, violating fair housing laws. Does that sound like the work of the ethical, straight-shooting grandpa from Omaha? And yet, when you think of Warren Buffett, do any of these things come to mind? Or do you think of the man who supposedly saved the American financial system in 2008? The legend, repeated endlessly in the financial press, is that at the absolute height of the panic, when global markets were in free fall, the Oracle of Omaha swooped in. His $5 billion investment in Goldman Sachs was hailed as a genius move, a vote of confidence from the world's most trusted investor that helped calm the terrified markets. He looked like a national hero. But let's look at what was happening behind the scenes, before the crash, before the crisis. Berkshire Hathaway was a massive shareholder in Moody's Corporation, one of the big three credit rating agencies. These agencies are supposed to be the unbiased referees of the financial world. Their only job is to assess risk and tell investors how safe an investment is. But during the housing bubble, there was a deep, corrupting conflict of interest. The banks creating the risky investments were the ones paying Moody's to rate them. And what did Moody's do? They stamped toxic, garbage mortgage-backed securities, bundles of subprime loans that were destined to fail, with their highest possible rating, AAA. They were basically calling junk bonds as safe as government debt. This deception was the fuel that powered the entire crisis, allowing these toxic assets to infect the entire global financial system. And as the largest single shareholder in Moody's for years, Buffett's company was profiting handsomely from the fees Moody's collected for handing out these fraudulent ratings. When he was eventually hauled before the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission to explain his role, Buffett's defense was shocking. He, the man celebrated as the greatest and most detail-obsessed investor in modern history, claimed he had no idea how Moody's even rated these complex bonds. He pleaded ignorance about the core business model of one of his own major investments. Even more damning, he denied being warned by Moody's executives about the looming problems and the lowering of rating standards, a claim that directly contradicted evidence presented to the commission. Ultimately, Moody's was forced to pay an $864 million penalty for its central role in causing the crisis. Berkshire Hathaway, its biggest cheerleader and financial beneficiary, paid nothing. For years, Berkshire was also the largest single shareholder in Wells Fargo. This was the bank that was busted in 2016 for one of the most widespread consumer frauds in history, creating millions of fake bank and credit card accounts in customers' names without their knowledge, all to meet impossible sales quotas. It was a systemic fraud that ruined the credit of innocent people and exposed a deeply rotten corporate culture. Buffett himself called the bank's incentive system dumb. But what did he do? Did he follow his own famous advice and act ruthlessly toward a firm that had lost its reputation? No, he held on to the stock for years, publicly defending the bank's leadership while slowly and quietly selling off his shares in the background. In fact, a 2020 ProPublica investigation revealed the deep hypocrisy of his position. While Buffett was publicly praising the bank CEO and expressing his confidence in the institution, he was privately selling off his own personal shares of Wells Fargo stock. He was telling the public one thing and doing the exact opposite with his own money. Perhaps the most glaring and dangerous hypocrisy in the myth of St. Warren is his environmental record. For a man who preaches constantly about the importance of investing for future generations, his portfolio reads like a who's who of planetary destruction. While the world scientists issue ever more dire warnings about the climate crisis, Berkshire Hathaway has tens of billions of dollars poured into the fossil fuel industry. Let's be specific. Berkshire owns a massive, nearly 28% stake in Occidental Petroleum, a fossil fuel giant. And Buffett isn't a passive investor here. He said he might hold that stock indefinitely, a huge, long-term bet on the future of oil. Beyond oil, Berkshire Hathaway Energy is one of America's largest utility owners, and it continues to operate some of the dirtiest coal-fired power plants in the country. This isn't just about abstract pollution. It has real, devastating consequences. One of his utility companies, Pacificorp, was found grossly negligent for his role in causing catastrophic wildfires that torched Oregon in 2020. A jury found that the company acted willfully and recklessly when it failed to shut down its power lines during a historic windstorm, despite clear warnings. Those live wires sparked fires that burned over 1 million acres, destroyed thousands of homes, and tragically killed people. If this is the first time you're hearing about the predatory loans, the financial crisis profits, and the climate destruction, and you think more people need to know the truth, then hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives that challenge the official narrative. And tell me in the comments, does this change how you see Warren Buffett? The true mark of the man isn't just these individual investments. It's a breathtaking, almost unbelievable hypocrisy that ties it all together. To see it clearly, we have to go back to 1991. Buffett took over as the interim CEO of the powerful investment bank Salomon Brothers after a massive scandal where its traders were caught illegally rigging U.S. Treasury auctions. Standing before the United States Congress, Buffett, positioning himself as the soul of Wall Street, delivered his most famous and powerful line on ethics and reputation. He said, "Lose money for the firm, and I will be understanding. Lose a shred of reputation for the firm, and I will be ruthless." A powerful line, an unforgettable promise. But how does it square with his actions in the decade since? This is the same man who stood by Wells Fargo for years as its reputation was utterly destroyed by a massive, nationwide fraud against its own customers. Where was the ruthlessness then? This is the same man whose own chosen heir apparent, a man named David Sokol, resigned in disgrace in 2011 after it came out that he'd engaged in what looked like a classic case of insider trading. Sokol personally bought nearly 100,000 shares in a chemical company called Lubrizol right before he turned around and recommended that Berkshire Hathaway buy the entire company. When Berkshire made the purchase, Lubrizol's stock soared, and Sokol netted himself a fast, easy $3 million profit. Even though Berkshire's own internal audit found that Sokol's actions had violated the company's clear insider trading policies, Buffett publicly defended him, claiming his actions weren't unlawful. So, who is Warren Buffett? Is he the wise oracle of Omaha, the brilliant investor who champions long-term value and rock-solid integrity? Or is he a predator who has systematically profited from sugar addiction, predatory home loans, financial chaos, and climate destruction? The evidence is clear. The public persona, the humble, folksy grandpa, is a masterclass in public relations. It is a carefully crafted myth that provides a perfect cover for a lifetime of the most cutthroat form of capitalism. He built a multi-hundred-billion-dollar conglomerate and a vast personal fortune by investing in companies that exploit human weakness, deceive the public. And if you think the story of Warren Buffett's public image hiding a darker reality is shocking, wait until you see what we uncover about the beloved actor and activist Woody Harrelson. His story is even more unbelievable. Click here to watch that video next. And remember, fame hides everything until it doesn't.